A man proposes with a wild goose. My brother was asking for your hand in marriage.
Really?
But the more I look at her, the more I think she's the...
Heavens above will punish you for sure.
I'll be straight with you today. I love you. I want to make you my wife.
Hayo machozi yako ya mamba mimi hayanihurumishi hata kidogo.
Nakuuliza swali, umetoka wapi?
Mimi si mtoto mdogo.
Mbona haujamrudisha Lea kwenye mwili wake?
Mtu anapumzika kishiba, wewe uko hapa wagaga na njaa. What for?
Hujui ile hali nilopata na babangu.
All right, good morning and thank you for joining us. This is News Check on this second day of November, the year 2021, a program that seeks to explore issues shaping conversation in the country. And right now, the political temperature has really picked up in this particular country. And mostly our conversation this morning is going to be centered around the road to the 2022 general election. We are going to be discussing the issues that are coming up as we edge closer to this next year's general election, and of course also to look at the political realignments that are currently shaping up, and of course also touch on the voter registration exercise. Remember, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission had set the deadline to be today, but a lot of concern has been raised with regards to the voter apathy, and what was expected to be the last-minute rush for voter registration doesn't really seem to be, what people expected. So we'll be talking about the voter registration and a lot that is shaping this program today. Also on the second part, we'll be talking about the current forum that is going on in Scotland, the COP26 conference. I'll be having another set of guests to just talk about climate change and how we are doing as a globe when it comes to meeting our obligations in mitigating the impact of climate change. So for now, we want to be a little bit political, and I'm joined by a panel of two, I would say two gentlemen who really have a depth of knowledge in the political happenings in this particular country. I'll start with the gentleman on the center there. Is not a new face. His name is Fred Okango. Fred Okango is a political commentator. And of course, we also have this morning Maina Karobia, a political analyst. Thank you, both of you, for creating time for us this morning.
Thank you, Serfine. Thank you so much.
All right. So we are on the road to 2022. Each day, each hour, we are actually getting very close to this particular day when the country will be electing the next crop of leadership. I want us to start from where it all begins, the voter registration, level. And today, was the date that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission had set as the deadline on the enhanced voter registration exercise. They had targeted to reach at least 4.5 million new registered voters. But as the closure of this exercise in the third week, IEBC recorded that only about 800,000 people had turned up to register as new voters. I don't know what your comments would be about this, gap. Let me call it that. Let me start with you, Fred.
Thank you so much, Serfine. Indeed, it is true. Actually, IEBC had targeted 6 million new voters.
4.5.
The initial target was 6 million. Actually, above 6 million. If you look at their latest, I think by yesterday, they had only managed 1.2 million. And this exercise is ending today. There are a lot of issues that, as politicians, we have picked, and as leaders, we have picked. However, I just want to remind Kenyans that the Constitution of Kenya mandates IEBC to conduct continuous voter registration, and therefore it is a continuous process. And remember, Serfine, every Kenyan in this country, every citizen has a right to be registered as a voter without unreasonable restriction. And putting that deadline to today might appear unreasonable. And I'm sure you're aware there's a court order that has extended it to 9th, pending the hearing and determination of that matter. I see a situation where this process will continue. We wrote to IBC chairman, and we had a discussion with him on Friday, asking for an extension of the same.
By we, you mean?
By we mean a group of young leaders in this country that have struggled for long and believe that this exercise, if it ended today, then it should have, or it would have denied majority of the strugglers who are part of the 6 million an opportunity to register as voters. But I just, before I give my colleague an opportunity to also talk, I just want to give you 3 reasons why, in my view, I think the new voters are not registering, particularly the young people. Number one,
I don't know why I have a feeling, before we get to that, let's just get a general feel about what we are reading from this gap. You know, IEBC had an ambitious target of 4.5 million new registered voters. Yes. Just your sentiments also on, you know, why they don't seem to be meeting this target, even as at the closure of this particular exercise today. Of course, the court has pronounced itself on, you know, the petition that was filed to extend it. But, you know, what do you think about what's happening?
I think that the process is a bit traditional in terms of registering new voters. I believe that we are dealing with a new generation. People who are born in early 2000 will be voting for the first time. And this is the Generation Z of our country, or our current 21st century. And I think that we cannot be using the traditional way of registering voters and expect that these young people will be motivated to come out and be registered as voters. We must keep the process as appealing as possible. Because if you tell a young person, this Generation Z people, that you are going to line up a long queue to go and register, I don't think they will find the motivation. They have other economic needs, especially when we have a country that is whose economy is leading negatives. They have more issues at hand to deal with other than just going and lining up. Until you motivate them to go and register as voters, that's when you are going to have them turn into numbers to register. So I think the IBC should make the process as simple as possible, technological-wise, technological savvy in terms of the whole process of registering of voters, so that we can have as many young people turning to register as voters. I'm looking at 2022 as a moment of change in terms of generational change of leadership, even how we have set our social system in our country. But these establishments, economic-wise, political and social, are not going to be changed if we are not providing a conducive environment, a conducive ecosystem for these young people to participate in that change. In that electoral process. Yes.
All right, you've cited technology. I don't know whether technology is the big issue here. You wanted to tell us, 3 reasons why we have not achieved what we ought to have achieved as a country. Tell us a little bit about what you're reading from this.
I think my colleague, I'm not sure what he's trying to say when he says that IBC should not approach it traditionally, because if there's any institution that has invested today in technology and innovation in terms of capturing voter details, is IBC, and I'm sure he knows that. But I just wanted to say that the reason why there's voter registration apathy is because, number one, majority of young people who you see filling these rallies, they don't have voters card. I mean, they don't have identification card. They don't have IDs. The requirement for you to register as a voter, you must have a national ID card or a passport. These young people, majority of them don't have. You know why they don't have? Because of historical criminal records. Some of them fear giving their fingerprints because they have historical backgrounds. Number two, there is the politics of the day, where the modern, or rather the current politicians have preferred candidates. the young politicians, young leaders who want to venture into politics for change that he's talking about, they are not able to mobilize their colleagues to go and register because they believe that already those positions or those certificates have been designated to some individuals. So they have no incentive. Number three, we have seen situations where IBC has asked for money, and they've said for this process to continue to its completion, then we need a certain amount of money to carry it. What they were allocated, they have been complaining. They're saying they don't have money. It is not the job of IEBC to, use their money, or rather to get money from us to go and do this job. The Parliament of Kenya must allocate funds through Treasury so that IEBC can conduct this. That's another hurdle. The other hurdle has been the issue of kits, the voter registration kit. There are people in this country, some of them are schooling, the students, but they would want to vote in Nairobi. They're schooling in Dorit, they're schooling in Homa Bay. But the kit limits them in terms of registration in that area. So they're wondering, if I register in this area and I'll be in Nairobi in 2022 to vote, how will I come back and vote? Then lastly is the economic meltdown that he has talked about. You earn 300 shillings per day as a boda or as a whoever, and you are looking at the distance you want to cover to go and register. And you debate, do I put food on the table today? Or do I use this as a transport means to go and secure myself for a voter registration? And lastly, politicians have not, majority of politicians have not tried as much as they could to ensure that they mobilize young people who are majority of the population and are going to be majority of voters next year to register. Politicians are selling their agenda, but they have forgotten that the main agenda is to first have members of the public register. I have seen majority of politicians speaking about this, and I'm glad politicians like Gideon Moi came out on Sunday when he was in Githurai and appealed to the masses. Gideon Moi told people we need now to differentiate between kura and kula, because majority of politicians are kulaing, but they are not mobilizing, the public to get the kura, which will enable you to change. The leadership that he's talking about can only change if you have a voter. It doesn't matter which way you vote, but the first thing first, get the voters registered, get yourself registered as a voter, then you can effect that change appropriately.
Yeah, and that's a given. And I would just like to take you back on something you said concerning, young voters not being, finding it hard to travel to different locations.
There's no incentive.
This time around, if I remember correctly, IEBC gave a provision that you do not necessarily have to travel. If you're registering as a new voter, you do not necessarily have to travel to a different location to go and register. You can actually do that where you are, and then the system, they have a way in which the system can be able to
They did say that, Serfine, but they have got very limited number of mobile kits that can register you anywhere. Very limited.
All right.
That's
the majority they are targeting, the majority they are targeting are 6 million. 90% of the 6 million are young voters. And when we talk about technology, we have the technology. We have restricted the technology. It's not that we don't have technology, because it is there. That's what I disagree with him when he say they need to do things differently. They have it. This is goodwill. And I want to see a situation where they even visit homesteads. They make it their issue. Walk into homesteads and do this voter registration at the doorstep. Go to the villages. Majority of the young people today are in the rural areas. They are in the wards. Take these kids to the wards for those who want to register. Let them register. Remember, this is a right for every Kenyan. So we must do it as a right first.
All right. And just before you come in, I mean, what happened to the spirit of patriotism? You've cited the word mobilization from the politicians, from IEBC. I'm looking at the voter himself or herself. What happened to that inner drive, that thirst to want to be part of this electoral process, such that it has to take the effort of IEBC or a politician to push you, if I may use that term, to push you to go and register as a voter, to exercise actually what is your civic right as a Kenyan? What happened? Why do we have that sense of hopelessness among us as Kenyans?
Okay, Serfine, I think the reason as to why people are not motivated to participate in these political processes is because over time we have seen that Kenyans come out in numbers to vote for their leaders. But post the election, we find people eroding our democracy through handshakes, and all manner of political conmanship. So that's why you'll find people are not motivated to participate in this politics. And I would tell you, the reason as to why you're finding even young people are not fully motivated to register for this voter exercise is because of one thing. There is already political undertones and sentiments on our media. Every political rally that we go, that the candidate is, we know who will be the next president. We know who the system is favoring. So people are seeing that the system, the establishment has already rigged the elections, so they don't have to go and approve and confirm the rigging in terms of participating in the electoral process. But that as it is may, I want to say that as much as you are disagreeing that technology is not an issue in this registration process, Serfine, my brother has just confirmed that IBC should take the process to the door-to-door campaigns. And I would say this, IBC, if it is really targeting the youth, let youth register them from the comfort of their house with a mobile phone, without necessarily me going to the IBC booth to register as a voter. Let them make it as simple, as accessible as possible through the phones. And I think our youths are technology savvy in terms of doing these processes. So technology is an issue, we can't ignore that. We must make the process as accessible and as simple as possible. In terms of erosion of democracy and people not being motivated to turn up in terms of political direction that the country is going to take, the erosion of our democracy is a critical factor as to why people are not motivated to participate.
The population that is being targeted here is what you called Generation Z. I didn't even know we got there. You know, I was still thinking we're in Generation, X.
Yes.
But suddenly we're in Generation Z. But why is this population crucial? And a lot of those who've come out to say that they are going to be vying in the 2022 polls have this youth agenda as the core of their what they are selling in terms of what they will offer this nation.
Yes.
Why the sudden appetite for the youth in this country? Why are they crucial in this electoral process?
Let's start from where I left, Serfine. You see, it is very wrong to try and even to attempt to imagine that the reason why young people are not registering is because of handshake and handshake. I think those are emotional sentiments, and in my view, they are neither here nor there. Kenyans are bright and they know exactly who they would want to elect. They will do that in a secret ballot on 9th August 2022. So anyone who is still hanging on handshake and handshake, I think Kenyans move from there. Kenyans are visioning a country that shall be prospering come 2022 when they elect their leaders, right from the MCA to the presidency level. Now back to your question. The reason why this voting bloc is critical is because this is the future. You know, the young people have been told for a very long time that they are leaders of tomorrow. Then they were told, no, you are no longer leader of tomorrow, you are leader of today. But the young people, including myself, have told them we're the leaders of today. And that's why participation, political participation of the young people as provided for in the Constitution of 2010 is critical. Now, I just wanted to refer you to the census 2019. If you look at it, forget about even the registered voters alone. The number of young people who are part of the 47 million are massive, 75%. Now, as somebody who is a leader in a political party, I also tell you, if you look at the party registration membership in terms of registration, majority of them are young people. What young people are asking for, give us an opportunity to serve this country in political processes. That is why the politicians are going to them, telling them, look, other than just being, because I've seen one of the leaders in this country who is using young people as voting robots, mobilization robots, is using them as mobilization tools for mass destruction. The other day in Israel, he did tell them that, I know you are here, majority of you, because you are jobless. But he's not telling them how he's going to help them to get jobs. This is something that we must talk about openly today. And this is what we are saying as young people. It's not enough for the political leaders to use the young people to fill their rallies and give them 200 shillings and tell them, tomorrow when you go back home, I'll bring you wheelbarrow, I'll bring him mkokoteni. That's not what young people want. The young people want to be involved in the political process, right from the party leadership all the way to elective and appointive positions. That can only happen if they're given opportunity. They have lacked opportunity. I'm glad today a few political leaders are giving young people opportunity, but majority of them are still using them as mobilization tools to decorate their rallies in a yellow fever kind of semantics. That must end. Lastly, Serfine, you know, it is interesting that you ask this question, that why is it this voting bloc now critical? Let me ask you, when you look at every politician speak, they mention the word youth or young people 8 times. 8 times, at least 8 times. Why? Because they recognize that these are the people going to make them leaders. But how come the young people have not decided to field one of their own as the president? They have not decided to field one of their own as MCA, woman rep, senator, governor. Why? Because of this class. I was about to tell you, you can answer that, because you're part and parcel. Exactly. So this is why I'm answering. The reason why that is happening is because there is a clique of politicians in this country that have decided that this election will be determined by the people that they mobilize, not to help, but to put them in position. This group of politicians, you have seen them crisscrossing this country, using choppers, using whatever they use, and then they call themselves the lowly placed, but they are highly placed, who are taking advantage of the struggle of the young people to make ends meet for themselves. That must stop.
Let's also hear from Maina. Yes. I mean, Fred is saying the youth of this country want to be part and parcel of the leadership.
Yes.
Not be, you know, like the kingmakers, and then at the end of the day, they're not part of that leadership.
Yes.
What do you think the youth of this country need from where you sit? We all agree that the youth agenda is an important agenda in these coming, polls. Yes. But how do we address it? What do they really need?
I think the youth of our country need a responsive government. They need a genuine leader, a person who have a track record, a proven one, somebody who has walked the journey in terms of helping the youth get into their economic aspiration. And I think I've seen Dr. William Ruto on this journey. He has actually empowered various youth groups, self-help groups, and actually even youths in the education sector. When he was the Minister of Higher Education, he reduced the entry period from 2 years to 6 months. I think that is somebody who has the goodwill of the youth. When he was the Minister of Agriculture, he provided the necessary subsidy, government subsidy, for people to easily engage in the agricultural activities. And I think when we have this conducive environment, you find young people participating in the whole process. So I think the youth of our country, what they are looking at in 2022, they want a responsible leader. They want somebody who has a track record. They want somebody who is inspiring. Because leadership is about, even Napoleon Bonaparte said, a leader is a dealer in hope. So they are looking at 2022 from that angle of inspiration, a responsive government that can be held accountable, somebody who has a track record, and they are looking for somebody who has a true economic model that he is presenting to us. Looking at it,
critics of that model,
yes,
have questioned, how it is being packaged.
Yes.
In the sense that yes, the youth of this country need jobs.
Yes.
They need, to be elevated economically.
Yes.
But they need decent jobs. They need,
Absolutely.
I mean, what did you say about how that messaging has been packaged? Has it been misunderstood from where you sit? Just explain to us.
You see, the bottom-up economic model is not merely the wheelbarrow that you see. It is not as that simple. The bottom-up economic model has been tried elsewhere in this world. We have seen it today happening in the United States. The current president is employing it. And William Ruto, or the UDA party, is promoting this economic philosophy because we need to move from the conventional way of operating as a country. For the 50 years that we have been, since our independence, this country has been operating on the trickle-down economic model, and it has not served anyone. It has only served the interest of the minority privileged. So we, as a party and as a political formation, we are saying that it is time we changed how we do our economics. We need to go to the grassroots. We need to go to the base. We need to invest our priorities to the people at the grassroots. And let me tell you, if we get it right at the basics, at the base, even at the top level of our economic pyramid, we are going to get it correct. For the longest time, we have been giving tax incentives, we have been giving good enabling access to markets, international markets, to these big corporations. But now, as a party, we are saying that the bottom-up economic model needs to invest in the enterprises, the small and medium enterprises that are at the grassroots. And if you look at these SMEs, majority of them are owned by young people. So the bottom-up economic model shifts from what you would call the mainstream economy, that you would call it, or the formal economy, to the informal economy, so that we can formalize what we have, what is outside the tax the tax bracket, and we formalize this particular economy, and then it is mainstreamed, and now the government can now start engaging these SMEs in terms of even collection of revenues, in terms of even providing incentives and seed capital.
You've had your say. I don't know, Fred, what do you think about, and the other day, by the way, before we even get deeper into this, you also were part of the launch of a movement that you're currently really driving in this country, the strugglers movement.
Absolutely.
There is the hustler movement.
Yes.
So which is which? I mean,
I don't know. I've never heard about it.
You can't say you live in this
strugglers are a copy paste of the Hustler Nation.
You can't say you've not heard of the hustler.
They are just McTiming to join Hustler Nation.
Let him have his say. You've explained what the bottom-up economic model is, and I have a lot of questions for you later.
Please.
But also let us hear from.
Listening to my brother struggle through. Explain what is bottom-up.
I'm not a struggler. I'm a hustler.
And
what's the difference?
Serfine, this country, during independence, we struggled for independence. We didn't hustle for independence. And let me give you operation definition. A struggler is an individual who puts in genuine effort and is determined to end the difficulties that is experiencing for a better future, today and tomorrow.
Which dictionary?
Which dictionary? According to which dictionary?
What they are.
Because the other day hustler also defined one. Where have we been all these days?
Let's go.
How we conducting hustlers changed?
And you can check now. This is what they are. And listen to me keenly. These are people who circumvent the struggle and difficulties through shortcuts to enrich themselves. This country, and I repeat, we never at any given time hustled for independence. We struggled for independence. And these are the struggles that we are undergoing as a country. We are undergoing political struggle. Under political struggle, political instability, political inclusion. We are undergoing economic struggle. Under economic struggle, economic recovery that has been occasioned by theft of public money, and you know who are the thieves of this country, you know where they have been cited.
No,
we are undergoing, you are a journalist, you have covered this. We are undergoing social struggles, and we are even undergoing environmental struggle. Today, the world leaders are gathering in Scotland. That's the struggle we are undergoing. But the struggle must end. We cannot say we are hustling, and then you give people hustling tools. You are enhancing the hustle. We must end the struggle, and that's why we are saying today, the best economic model that has been tested and can only be strengthened is devolution. I have listened to the leaders. One of them is Gideon Moi. Gideon Moi has said that we must strengthen devolution. He has said we must involve the young people in leadership. Those are the struggles that people have been struggling with. Now, if you listen to our friends who have been struggling to explain to us the economic model that they paint in golden colors, while it is in pure sense it is silver. This is what they don't know. When you want to strengthen devolution and target the people that are at the bottom, number one, you must have a framework towards achieving that. They're not telling us what is their framework. We are telling them that today the devolution beyond county headquarters is the surest way of reaching the majority of 75 of Kenyans who are down there by apportioning a certain percentage, 1.5, 2.5, as envisioned in the Constitution, of that money that will encounter or will be used to accelerate development, because we are now adopting the word as the primary unit of accelerated development. Where are the people of Kenya? The people of Kenya are in the villages and the wards. But when you tell Kenyans, I'm going to create 4 million jobs and I'm going to put 40 billion or 100 billion in your pocket, Kenyans don't just need money in their pockets. They need an environment where they can have their own money. Tokenism is not going to work. Lastly, Serfine, we also know that our brothers, the other side, who are competing today, they don't understand how economic models work. They use it as a sloganeering. We tell them that today, there's nothing at the bottom, because what is at the bottom has been stolen. You cannot say bottom's up and bottom is bare. You must put something at the bottom. How do you put something at the bottom? This country collects over 1.5 trillion. Apportion a percentage of the national collection as envisioned in the Constitution of Kenya 2010, so that you achieve the objects and principle of devolution that says the communities must have, or the county government must have, a way of governing themselves and developing themselves. You cannot be developed by an individual. Who are you who has these billions that you can put billions in people's pockets, 47 million of them?
Okay.
You are not...
He seems to be having a response to the questions you are asking. So,
Serfine, my brothers on the other side are struggling to identify with the bottom-up economic model. The bottom-up economic model, in bottom-up economic model, the biggest resource is the human capital, the human resource. And we are looking at the people, not from the point of, we are looking at the success of this economic model, not in terms of capital. We are looking at it from the human resource perspective. So we are, and these resources that we are going to take on the grassroots, William Ruto has talked about investing 100 billion in terms of empowering the small and medium enterprises. These small and medium enterprises will not be going to individual pockets. It will be going to the enterprises. If I have an enterprise and my brother doesn't have, he will not get it, but I will get it. And vice versa is true. If he has an enterprise and I don't have an enterprise, you find the Hasra government is going to empower him, or the 100 billion per constituency is going to empower him, rather than coming to me, because he has a legal entity that he can secure these resources from with it. So
for one,
let me tell you this.
Somebody who's listening to both of you, seems, aren't we saying the same thing?
No,
we are not saying the same thing.
We are not.
There's a trickle down. It serves only the minority.
No, the objective, what's the ultimate objective?
Let me tell you,
at the end of the day, isn't it about empowering that vulnerable Kenyan?
Yes, but
not only vulnerable. Not only vulnerable.
Let me tell you,
Kenyans.
For them, it is holding resources at the top.
One person at a time.
So that I respond.
Okay.
Our friends here are painting a donkey to be a horse. It can never be. The only sure way of achieving, Kenyans don't just need development, they need accelerated development. It must be faster. It must be achieved through the confines of the Constitution. They have not told Kenyans how they are going to collect 100 million. They have not told Kenyans who are they going to tax. They are telling us that we need more wheelbarrows so that you can work at Mjengo for the rest of your life. They are telling us you need more stalls so that you can sit in the sun and sell mboga all day. We need to go to the level of grocery. We need to go to the level.
No,
is that what your team is saying?
No.
Just alone. You had the time. So what we are saying, the pillar of development in this country has been marked as devolution. And devolution does not mean top down or trickle down. If he has gone through the Constitution of Kenya 2010, he should be aware of the principle of devolution. One of them is that the county government also, at the bottom there, should have enough resources, generate their own revenue. How do you do that? First of all, you must put structures in place so that even the people, they're talking about SMEs. Not all the people have SMEs. The majority that have SMEs, they have been collapsed because of theft. We are saying, today, the surest way of reaching every struggler in this country And struggler, I have defined. These are people who put in genuine effort, not the Gamwaya, Ngaweka, these legit guys of politics like they are.
I didn't even see you go there.
No, I mean, really, it is true. What we are saying, Serfine, is very simple. And majority of Kenyans agree.
Let's be real.
Yes.
In Kenya, you know what a struggler means and what a hustler has always been.
Let me tell you.
Until we had this new definition.
No. When you go through operational definition, open your Oxford English Dictionary, you will not even try and show you are 2 years killed about that.
I understand what you're saying.
But when
when you go
through this, let me just finish. When you go through this, you'll realize we as people who believe in strengthening devolution, we believe that majority of the people in this country are people struggling economically, politically, socially, environmentally. Those are themes that must be fixed, not now, not tomorrow, but immediately. So
for you to fix that,
for you to fix that, you don't need to promise billions.
All right.
What you need to do, you need to seal theft avenues and then collect that money, then use the channels that are avoided to take it to the people.
You had your say.
Thanks.
He said something about what he thinks your team is communicating to the public. I want you to clarify more about what is in it for Kenya from what you're selling as the bottom-up economic.
The bottom-up economic model is a wealth creation approach. And it is not about enhancing the struggles people are going through. It's all about inspiring people and providing a framework, a growth framework to achieve their economic aspiration. We are telling them that if today you have a chair, you're sitting on a chair, that one chair, it doesn't stop you from sitting on a large chair like the one you are sitting here. And that is going to, and the bottom-up economic model is providing a framework, a regularized framework that is going to empower you so that you can achieve that economic aspiration of moving from one level of commercial activity to another level, an improved one. And it doesn't mean enhancing a struggle. The bottom-up economic model is about people getting to a level above the ones they're having today. And this is going to happen through government goodwill, provision of necessary capital, seed capital and resources, capacity building activities that is going to be facilitated by the government, of the Hasra government. So we shouldn't be misconstrued by our opponents and friends from the other side to mean that we just mean provision of wheelbarrows. The wheelbarrow is just a symbol of our revolution, the economic revolution. During the Bolsheviks revolution, they had the hammer and sickle as their symbol of revolution. Ours is the wheelbarrow. So they shouldn't misconstrue it that we are providing a certain technology to the people so that we can enhance a certain economic activity. Ours is just a symbol of revolution. The bottom
it's not about wheelbarrow.
It is not about wheelbarrow. The wheelbarrow is just because it's just a simple tool.
The concern has been that let's elevate the young people to a level where they won't hustle, they won't be in that, they won't accept the circumstances, because for somebody to embark on certain jobs in this particular country, you'd have to agree with me that circumstances push young people to do anything, to make ends meet. To tell that young person that I'm going to put in money for you to continue doing this in a more successful way. I mean,
no.
It's about to that when
it's about business. It's about business.
Let me.
It's about decent jobs. It's about healthcare. The bottom-up model.
Look at the confusion.
It covers a lot of areas.
I still want you, gentlemen, to explain to me the difference between strugglers and hustlers, but that will come later. Let's listen into more about these political promises that are coming up. Of course, we've heard from the gentleman I have on set this morning, but also the OCA team was in the Western region, and this is what they had to say with regards to what they are promising Kenyans. Remember, we've really been waiting for them to put their house in order, to come up with a presidential candidate, to tell Kenyans what they have to offer, and this is what they had to say. Let's listen into some of the political sentiments.
Ukitaka kama jamii tuungane na Wakenya wengine ndio tupate kile tunapataka.
Mekucha. Siasa za udanganyifu Kenya zimeisha, kwamba sisi ni timu moja ambaye hawezi kubanduka.
Tafadhali ninawasi ujue hivi, shida zenu zote, shida ya wakulima kuhusu shukari, dawa ni wapi?
Yaani tunakaribia uchaguzi, wewe na mimi ndio tutaunda serikali. Watu wamekuwa na tabia ya kujaribu kushurutisha ati huyu ndio tunamlazimisha mchukue.
All right, so that is what the One Kenya Alliance has to offer Kenyans. I mean, beautiful promises coming from different political players. If all these political players could just sit together and agree on one thing they want to offer the nation, I mean, we would have a beautiful country and all our problems could be solved. But I know I'm dreaming too big on this one.
No, you're not. You're not.
No, politics is a competitive process.
You know, Serfine, politics is a competition of ideas. And the best idea carries the day. And from that vote, they form the government. I have listened to the gentleman, Gideon Moi and his friends. And if you check keenly on that day, I would say the Western leaders were hosting Gideon Moi in Kakamega. You know, it's interesting that how politicians speak these things, they more or less speak the same thing. They want to uplift the people, they want to change their lives. But there are people in this country, there are leaders in this country who have fought unity. I agree with him when he says it's not the same, because from his argument, they have fought unity, they have fought inclusion, they have fought the fight against corruption, they have fought the fight of increasing resources to the lowly placed, over billions that were going to the people. They fought it. They fought the division revenue bill. They are now fighting even their own government. These are people who are in a government. It's like you are fighting the people in your own house. Now, to go back to what you said, I think it is time to do things differently. We must do things differently. And by differently, I mean we must look at the real challenges and be innovative and creative. I am very happy that there are leaders in this country today, like Gideon Moi, who have come up and saying, let's do different. And look, he is a visitor in Western Kenya, and he said, your problems are the industries that give or create opportunities for your people here. We must fix that. The other gentleman, when he went to Western Kenya, you know what he told them? He told them that you keep following me when you want money and you don't want to give me votes. That is not a leader who is offering the solution. A leader must identify what are the problems of that region is visiting, then what are the tangible solutions. They have said, the OCA team and led by Gideon Moi, they have said, in this region, we must revive their economic livelihood by ensuring that all those industries that have been collapsed through corruption are up.
But haven't we heard this before?
We have heard before.
Haven't we heard this gospel before?
Gideon Moi has been consistent, and he has said, as I finish, he has said, Gideon Moi says the biggest problem in this country is corruption. And I have watched all his journey. He has said that for us to finish, even these economic models that people are now painting, these donkeys that are painting horses, if it is to work, then we must first finish corruption. And we must be radical about fighting theft of public money. Even if it means jailing them for life or hanging them by neck till they die, then that must happen. Because when you steal money meant for mumias, money meant for, all those other projects, road, hospital, transport, you are actually killing. So you are a killer, you are a murderer who must die. And you see the same thieves positioning themselves in church, positioning themselves before a crowd and saying, we are going to build this, and they're not telling us how are they going to fight corruption. Right. That is the biggest elephant in the room.
Yes. Serfine, I don't want to digress to subjective argument, but I must say that William Ruto has actually approached the Western Bloc. He actually held a Western Regional Economic Forum sometimes back in September, and whatever the Western leaders and Western professionals and supporters presented to him is going to inform the larger manifesto of William Ruto later on, either late this year or early next year. So we have engaged them on that objective level. We have engaged them on a regional economic forum without any politics. I actually attended that meeting by virtue of being a youth leader in the country. And I liked the debate. I liked how the Western delegation presented their case in terms of industries, in terms of development to William Ruto. And actually he gave a commitment of how he is going to work with the Western region. But I want to say this.
If he is elected president.
If he is elected the next president, which is a matter of confirmation in August. But let me say this.
I have a question for both.
Let me say this. Yeah. Let me say this. That William Ruto is presenting the bottom-up economic model to the people, while his competitors are jostling for endorsement from cartels, presents him, gives him a higher competitive advantage as we head to 2022. William Ruto is engaging people on the basis of an economic model. The other people, which Okango is a spokesman of Oka and Raila Odinga, they are going for positions, endorsements, attending meetings in hotels, and this is not going to be the case. People are demanding higher from their leaders in 2022, and that's why you find people are attending rallies. If you cheat people, if you lie to people, the following day they are going to call a presser to call you out, because people are demanding high of their leaders as we head to 2022.
But if you're telling me about new faces we've not seen before, if you're telling me about people who've not had an opportunity to serve in government,
yes,
I would actually feel like this would be a breath of fresh air. But you're talking about Musalia Mudavadi, you're talking about Kalonzo Musyoka, you're talking about William Ruto, who has served as a deputy president in this country. What is giving Kenyans the assurance that, you know, this is going to be a promise that is going to be fulfilled? Because these gentlemen have served in powerful positions in this country, and the agenda they are selling right now, they had every opportunity to implement it and to have Kenyans benefit from it. So
let me tell you, Serfine, as I respond to what he said, I agree with you. Kenya needs a breath of fresh air. And that's why I keep saying, if there's one individual that must exit as President Kenyatta goes to retire, is William Ruto. He has served in this government with President Kenyatta. The successes of President Kenyatta are his successes. The challenges of President Kenyatta are his challenges, because they were elected on one ticket as per the provision of law. He cannot say that him now he can do more than his boss who they have worked with. If anything, he is the principal assistant of the president. Of course, he has abandoned his duty and he has other ambitions. Now he's trying to do the multiple effect of yellow fever in this country that is unnecessary. Number two, I must tell you that for me, I look at leaders with equal opportunity. Unfortunately for him, he says that William Ruto is going to be the president. He says that. I wish them well. But for me, I'm looking at all these leaders who have come up, who has the country at heart. Because William Ruto, whom he is speaking for today on a national broadcaster, has said before that the leadership of this country is Matapeli. The other ones are being endorsed by Atapeli. You know, and that is somebody.
Let's be careful not to advance.
I mean, I'm not advancing
any political rhetoric.
No, I'm not advancing, but these are things that are important. And I want to be objective as objective as possible.
Yes, and
in my objectivity, I'm saying that these are facts that have been reported by the media, you and the rest. And they have said that, and they said it in broad daylight. What I'm saying is, this country needs unity more than anything else. This country needs inclusion more than anything else, at a time when we're going for a transition election. And when you say that a leader has the best interest at heart, what are you looking for? First of all, you look at how he speaks, his conduct, his track record. I'm glad you're bringing in a new topic. You're saying Where is the freshness?
Exactly, because even Raila Odinga has served in very senior positions in this country.
I don't speak for Oka, but I speak for leaders. I even speak
he is the spokesman of Oka.
You see,
not categorically say that.
The issue is
because the names you guys have mentioned.
The issue here is who is best suited to be the next leader with a team that will secure strugglers, him, me, and others, so that we have a better Kenya. The shortcut that they are insisting on, that shortcut will not help us. But we must look at a leader who has the interest of the young people. And when I say young here, I don't mean the youth, because the youth is an abused word. The young at heart, the young in age, the young in whatever they do, and have got the ideas to change. Number two, devolution. This is the new system. You know, when you devolve resources to the doorsteps, so that the person that is lowly placed has an opportunity to enjoy the government services as the provision of Article 6, that is when you can say you are reaching them. Our people, as I finish, our colleagues, our competitors, our abusers, if I may use that word, but they abuse everything, have decided that for them, they are going to create class wars. This class war is not going to work. What is going to work is when every leader mean what he says and says what he means. The first thing, we must fight corruption. I have never heard some of these leaders talk about corruption. I don't know because by design or by default, but in my imagination, I think they are avoiding
Fred,
it.
You've had your say. Yeah, kindly just respond to what he has said.
Do you mean when you look at Oka in your objective analysis, is it...
And I'm not an analyst.
Yes. Is it the Oka guys who are going to bring the change that we want in this country? Is it the Oka guys who are going to fight corruption? Is it Raila Odinga who is going to fight corruption? Let's be objective. 2022, we have shifted the debate from constitutional change, something that my friend Okango was supporting. And we have shifted the debate from the constitutional change to economic emancipation of the people. And that's where the bottom-up economic model came. My friend Serfine, as we head to 2022, we are seeking to build a responsive, accountable government. A government that can be held into account by the people. A government that is going to put people as the biggest resource in its policies. That is going to put people, putting the public participation as a key element in terms of policy making and in terms of decision making in our country. That is something that we have not seen in our country for the longest time. We have been finding people proposing development initiatives from government to the people. For the bottom-up economic model, it is we going to the people and asking them, what do you want? And that's why you find the regional economic models that the UDA party has been trying to hold across the country. It is a people-driven economic model. It is a people-driven, it will be a people-driven government, whereby people are going to be the center of the decision-making process, of the implementation phase, and also execution and its success. We want to have wealth creation being done from the village level. Actually, the key tenet of a bottom-up economic model is creating village cottages, village industries at the grassroots. We don't want these big corporations. We provide incentives. We provide
Is there anything
markets.
wrong with
There's no problem. But you hold resources at the top with the thinking that now that we have resources at the top, we can be dropping bit by bit to the people, and thinking that they are going to put a meal on the table. No, the bottom-up economic model is coming to you, Safi, whereby we provide necessary empowerment to you, so that you can put food on the table for yourself, and when you are able to provide surplus food for yourself, you can actually even sell to other people, and you can easily generate income in your household.
All right. If you put us in the global map, as our population is competing with others in developed countries, where are we if our focus is to put food on the table, where are we? What else do we have to offer the globe in this bottom-up arrangement? And are we having that ultimate vision of getting to that, the corporate, the formal, market with this bottom-up economic model, or we've settled for what we have and our hustling and our current status?
Safi,
just explain so that
Safi, there is no success. Safi, there is no success in the global market if there is human insecurity in your country. Security in the international level begins with the security of member states, and the security of member states begins with the human security at the local level. So, if you want to be competitive at the global level, we must first of all ensure there is food security in your country. We must ensure that people in your country are happy. Actually, you hear that in America, their greatest dream is about pursuit of liberty and happiness. We must make sure that people are comfortable at the local level. We can't be competing globally and we have political instability in our country. What is the essence of competing globally?
Okay, we are really struggling to explain the hustler and the struggler and the difference. But let's get a clip of what the struggler movement is all about, and then when we come back, hopefully we will get a clearer picture on where we are going with this. This is what those behind this particular movement had to say when they were launching this movement. Let's just get that clip and get to hear what this movement is all about.
This movement stems from the need for Kenyans to be heard and shape the decision-making processes at the community, county and national level. We are here to demonstrate that participation and inclusion of the critical masses can drive social, economic and political change.
It's our objective, one, to end the struggle by freeing Kenyans from the politics of deceit and invite them into the politics of hard work, peaceful coexistence, good governance, and sustainable development.
Strugglers movement, struggle ni real. Strugglers movement, struggle ni real.
Our strategy is very simple. Our strategy is to ensure that in 2022, we have the real struggler who will ensure that we end corruption. We have the real struggler who will ensure that we end negative ethnicity. We have the real struggler who will ensure that we strengthen devolution by adopting the ward as the primary unit of auxiliary development, because majority of the strugglers are at the villages, are at the wards.
We are not interested in political parties. This is a movement for young people. And the R you're seeing, we are not supporting anyone. The R means real. Kama hujaona hiyo real, sisi tunasema struggle ni real.
Tuna struggle na unity yetu kweli.
Struggle ni real.
Tuna struggle na mambo ya education kweli.
Struggle ni real.
Tuna struggle na mambo ya healthcare kweli.
Struggle ni real.
Kwa hivyo Kenya ni a struggling.
Okay, so struggle is real. In the interest of fairness, yes, I mean, it would be really. I mean, take it away.
It speaks for itself. I really don't need to put more effort, to explain, but just genuine effort. And the genuine effort is Kenya is a struggling nation, and that is why we need champion that will end the struggle. By the way, Serfine, the ultimate goal of this movement is to end the struggle. How do you end the struggle? You must apply yourself to the provisions that are available that will ensure that the struggle is ended. Not through shortcuts. We have struggled for independence. We have struggled for multi-party democracy. Now we are struggling for economic recovery.
Will it ever stop? Will it ever stop?
With the right leadership,
and the choice of words, hustler, struggler, the negative connotation that some people say is attached to these words.
Yeah. As a student of system thinking and practice, they say that there's nothing negative that cannot be pursued to be positive.
Mm-hmm.
The connotation that people have is because of anger, is because of the frustrations of life. I've talked about political struggle, economic struggle, social struggle, environmental struggle. And you know what? All these things cannot end if we don't do with one thing.
Mm-hmm.
We must have an opportunity to eradicate theft of public money, aka corruption. Just hold on. You know, it's good to be patient. We have seen in this country, Serfine, a certain clique of leadership or a certain formation of politics. They have never in their lives talked about how they're going to end corruption. I've heard Gideon Moi talk about corruption. I've heard Raila Odinga talk about corruption. I've heard Musalia Mudavadi in his economic model of what they call Uchumi Bora talk about corruption. I've heard Kalonzo Musyoka in ensuring that we have 24-hour economy talk about corruption. But I've never heard their competitor talking about ending theft of public money. What I've heard them do, weaponizing the fight against corruption. Now, as I finish, Serfine, I want the people watching this show today to know that the only appropriate thing to do is to give yourself hope that one day the struggle will end. Don't enhance the struggle. People in this country have come from very far. This country has come from a situation where you could not even say a thing, because if you say it, you'll be a target. Today we are speaking openly and loudly about ending some of these struggles. And we are saying we must first end the first struggle, the struggle of theft of public money. That has denied majority of Kenyans opportunity. If that ends, then we shall fix this. And the next thing we must do, we must now go and protect the money and enhance, strengthen
you've made your point, Fred.
That is it.
Nani Serfine, you know the challenge with and the tragedy that we are facing is that we are having strugglers struggling to join Hustler Nation. And let me tell you, the truth of the matter is that we can't have elites claiming to talk on behalf of the hustlers in this country. That is the tragedy we are facing in the country. And that's what you have just heard here. But let me say that the Hustler Nation is about hard work, resilience, and putting effort in whatever you are doing, a legitimate effort, so that you can acquire a legitimate success. And let me tell you, the Hustler Nation has actually earned legitimacy in this country, in terms of when the country was being driven to constitutional change, clamor for constitutional change, the Hustler Nation stood on its ground and said, no, this is the time to serve this country. The Hustler Nation, when there was the clamor for change, people said no, clamor for constitutional change. The Hustler Nation said no. This is time. Our 2010 constitution has not been effectively implemented. The Hustler Nation, when people are saying during the division of revenue that we adopt the win-lose formation, the Hustler Nation said no. Let us look for win-win formula in terms of devolution. And when my friend talks about devolution as being the only devolutionary system that we can adopt as a country, I don't find that as true, because devolution has actually been abused. We have seen it being abused by the powers that be when they have been trying to perpetuate a win-lose formula in our country. And the bottom-up economic model is trying to create a legitimate government policy whereby that devolution is going actually to be given the goodwill to operate in the grassroots through this macro level government policy that is called the bottom-up economic model. So
has it worked?
No, that's what we are telling the people, that we will be implementing. You know? It has worked across in other parts of the world. US, we are finding it, President Biden implementing it. It can also be replicated here in this country. And that's why we are saying that let us try this bottom-up economic model, because the last 56 years that our country has been operating on trickle-down economic model, it has only been advantageous to the minority rich rather than the majority.
As we're getting to the climax of this conversation, my question, and I will keep repeating this, couldn't there have been a better word that is more optimistic, that is, you know, shifting our mindset towards that positive ending that all these narratives are taking us towards? Why struggler? Why hustler? Why, you know, rubber stamp that weight, that challenge that Kenyans have been having?
You know, there's a quote my friend said here, that a negative connotation...
It's not a quote, it's a system thinking principle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There's something you said, that a negative connotation doesn't hinder a certain definition of something to be positive. And that's why we are saying the definition that he is trying to quote might be negative in terms of defining what a hustler is. But the hustler nation, the legitimate respect that it has earned in this country, has actually given positive attribute to what a hustler is. And that is hard work, determination, and focus to succeed.
Serfine, by their fruits you will know them. Let me not even go further. But what we are saying, the struggles should not be synonymous with poverty. Should never. But we know for sure that shortcut is not a way of life. Circumventing the effort is not a way of life. And that's why for us we believe that the only way of securing the majority, the lives of the majority of Kenyans, is number one, fight the vices that stop them from enjoying the opportunities, which is corruption. Number two, once you do that, now protect the resources. You know, when you say bottom means at the low, at the below. Not necessarily grassroots, at the below, down there. Now, what this means, bottom up, it means the development or the initiation of that feel good, enjoying whatever you need to enjoy as per right, must start from down.
Yes.
But that means you must take some resources down there. Now, our colleagues have eaten what is at the bottom. The bottom is bare. When you scratch it, it reads made in China. There's nothing. So what we are saying, we must now look at a formula of ensuring that the people at the grassroots, there at the villages, at the wards, are having an environment where they can create for themselves and we protect what they create. Number one, we must give a certain percentage of the national collection. They're not telling us. Number two, we must protect what they collect or what they create. They're not telling us. Number three, we must elect leaders that respect those structures down there. They are not telling us.
I don't know whether, just allow me, I don't know whether I got him correctly, but he sort of said something in relation to what you're addressing. Yes. That money is going to be injected to formal structures that are
from where? Money is injected from where?
From the treasury.
Where is the treasury? Treasury is at the bottom, right? I mean, let's be real.
Let me tell you, Nani.
Let's be real. Let me just finish.
No, Fred, allow him to explain so that we can explain what.
Listen.
Where is this money going to come from? For the bottom to generate, to elevate the economy in this country.
When we formalize the bottom-up economic model, I told you, when we have the bottom-up economic, the operational system of bottom-up economic model is that we are not going to criminalize enterprises. Like the way we have been finding today, if you want to do a business across the street here, you'll be arrested or your goods will be confiscated. The bottom-up economic model is going to formalize these enterprises, these commercial activities, so that we can enlarge the base. When you enlarge the base and when you formalize these commercial activities, then the government is going to easily.
Are you aware that the SMEs are
get the revenues? Wind up, because I'm informed.
Correct revenues, and these revenues is going. This revenue that we are going to collect from these formalized commercial activities is what is going to facilitate in terms of the development activities and also giving back the seed capital to this capital
activities. Your final word, Fred. Unfortunately,
Serfine, it is evident that there's nothing called bottom up. It is not there. It is a fallacy. It is a sloganeering method of woodwinking the majority of the frustrated young Kenyans into a yellow fever mood that is unnecessary. What Kenyans want today, they want the existing structures respected and strengthened. And we have said that the only way to do that, we must fight for a principle that is going to end their daily struggles. Political struggle, economic struggle, environmental struggle, and social struggle. Number two, we should not enhance it, our colleagues are enhancing. Number two, we have leaders in this country who have demonstrated that they are ready to strengthen devolution. Gideon Moi, who is one of the newcomers, has demonstrated that he's going to strengthen devolution. He has demonstrated that he's going to include the young people. He has demonstrated that he must fight corruption if all these models are at work. I want to ask Kenyans, let us be in an atmosphere where we are not by sloganeering, but we are encouraged by the real deeds from the actions of politicians and leaders who have demonstrated to end the struggle.
Is he the presidential candidate for Oka?
Is he?
I don't know, but what I know is he's among the leaders.
He is the spokesman of Oka.
Mwangi, your final word.
Maina Karobia. Serfine, I want to appreciate you for inviting me to this show. I'm humbled, but I want to give a clarion call to my generation, the young people of our country. Affordable health care is on the ballot. Responsible government is on the ballot. Affordable housing is on the ballot. Please go to the nearest IEBC booth and register as a voter. We cannot be passive participants in a political process that is going to take place in 2022. We must be at the center of the change that is going to dispense in our country.
All right.
And that change can only begin if we are going to be registered voters of our country. The bottom-up economic model cares for the youth interest post-2022. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Maina Karobia, political analyst. Also, I was having a sit-down with Fred Okango, political commentator. Thank you, gentlemen, for shedding light on what is shaping the road to the 2022 general election. Of course, we can always pick this up. We can never complete.
Yes.
So, looking forward to having another forum with you. And on that particular note, we've come to the end of our first interview. We are going to be crossing over to the next, which touches on climate change and a forum that is currently happening in Scotland that is bringing together world leaders to discuss the way forward on how to address climate change globally. I will be having another guest on that. But for now, I want to take you to the coastal region where the National Police Service Commission, in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and the National Police Service, is launching the Special Medical Board. This is seeking to assess sick officers and those who are injured in line of duty. Let's just listen into what is coming forth from this particular forum. Then we come back for our next interview.
And we are discussing this so that as we go forward, we are all together working to improve the welfare of our officers. What then necessitated this exercise is a concern from the service that there were so many officers who had suffered sickness and had suffered disability in the course of their duty, and Commission therefore needed to help in directing or help in coming up with a policy that would help these officers. One, we realized that there's need, the numbers of the officers that are concerned is growing daily. Even as we were coming down here, you all had those who are killed and those who are maimed. Every day is a new day for officers because the work they do is subjecting them to a lot of stress and also subjecting them to a lot of danger. So that Kenyans may sleep and have their lives and have their property protected, these officers here have to expose themselves to those pressures and expose themselves to those dangers to protect us. For you to sleep as Kenyans, you need these officers out there to help you. So it is our duty, therefore, also as Kenyans, to reciprocate by looking into their welfare and seeing that they will do whatever we can to help them as they work on this difficult terrain. So the Commission, in its wisdom, started this so that the officers concerned may get compensation, those who are already in those situations. How can we compensate what they have suffered? How can we look into areas of reassignment if in case they cannot continue with the difficult work of a policeman? How can we help them also realize what is due to them in the process of all this work? A lot of thought has gone in, and Commission, including the IG and the Deputy IGs, are all helping to work on this together so that with this assessment, we'll be able to give directives that will be able to help our officers out of these situations. and we look forward to the day we will finish. The exercise started in June. We have covered Nairobi area, we have covered the Rift Valley, the upper and the lower region. We have covered Nyanza, we have covered the northeastern, central, and now we are here at the coast. At the end of it all, we do hope that we'll be able to determine the direction in which these officers will be looked after. And one of the areas which is coming out is that we need to support them as they do the work, even before they get to the stages where they are living with sickness or living with disability. And one of these areas is areas such as what provision of medical insurance cover are we giving them? And that is already being addressed by the accounting officer, that is already being addressed by the IG's office, so that officers have a good medical insurance cover. So there are positive things that are already going on even before this exercise is concluded. We are looking into those living with disability. Already the IG has made arrangements that many of them are now in places where they can access hospitals. Those who are able to work near our homes, those who are able to work near our hospitals, so that from the rigorous duties of their daily work, already administrative capacities have been built in so that officers are not suffering per se, but are cared for. The third thing that the Commission is doing is we have recruited counselors and social workers who are going to work alongside these officers as they do their normal duties, that they are also provided these services nearer where they work. So some of these areas we expect that officers will then have access to the counselors at our own cost, and that they will be able to be supported as they deal with these conditions that they found themselves in, either in terms of disability or in terms of sicknesses which they are not able to cope with. Other areas which you have heard the representative of IG say, we are also listening to them. We are giving them opportunities in these forums to discuss with us, discuss with the IG's office, discuss with the Commission on areas of concern. From this, we'll be able to deduce.
All right, that is pictures you're seeing are coming to us live from Mombasa County. Stakeholders there at a forum being held by the National Police Service Commission, collaborating with the Ministry of Health and the National Police Service. Today, they are launching a special medical board that is going to assess sick officers and sick officers who are injured in line of duty. So just looking at the health welfare of those who are serving us in the security, system in this particular country. We have our reporter in the coastal region, Junaika Risa, following up the story for us, and to be getting more details about it in our comprehensive news bulletins at 1, and of course later on in the day. But in studio, we are having our second interview that is set to begin right now. We are shifting gears from the politics to the matters environmental conservation, having this conversation at a time when world leaders are gathering at Glasgow, Scotland for the COP26 international talks that are being spearheaded by the United Nations. The Conference of the Parties is a pivotal forum that is going to bring together world leaders to chart a way forward on how to address the climate change issues. And we just want to understand how significant this is for us and where Kenya fits in this whole global conversation about climate change. And in studio to help me have that important conversation, I have somebody who is very passionate about matters environment, and of course he's an environmental lawyer who has done a lot when it comes to, just encouraging young people and the entire population on how they can be able to understand climate change, understand the environment. And I'm talking about Kiprop Marimoi. He's with me in studio. Thank you so much, Kiprop, for creating time for us. And I just want us to start from what is happening currently as an environmentalist and as an environment lawyer. What is happening in Scotland right now is very crucial. I want you to tell us why this is important, why all focus should be shifted to this particular forum that is bringing together world leaders. Why is it important?
Thank you, Serfine, for having me today to discuss this issue, a very critical issue that must be discussed at this age and time. Like you've rightly put it, what is happening in Scotland, in Glasgow, is a meeting, a conference of parties to the United Nations on issues dealing with climate change. And just for your viewers, maybe just to understand, because climate change is a more scientific, if you look at it in a critical sense. Climate change is not understood by many. And maybe just to give an illustration or just a synopsis of what it entails on matters of climate change. First, I may ask you, for example, to define for me what is weather and what is climate. And most people might not really understand the difference between the two, okay? Now, if you look at the proper definition, for example, of weather is the everyday conditions, okay? Let's say the issue of humidity, wind, for example, temperature, okay?
It's hot,
precipitation, it is cold. That is for every day and maybe within a week. Now, if you look at climate on the other hand, it is the state of that weather for a long period of time, let's say for years, let's say for example. Now, when you talk about climate change, it is a change that happens within a prolonged period of time that has been statistically proven, okay? Now, that is what climate change is. And our scientists have told us, have informed us that indeed we are experiencing climate change. And that is why this conference of parties have come into place to help us understand, mitigate, or adapt to these effects of climate change. That is what is happening now in Glasgow.
All right.
Yes.
It's not a new topic. Climate change, it has been a progressive conversation, and this COP26 is not the first. The very first time we had such a forum was in 1995 in Berlin, when such delegates came together to talk about issues climate. Why are we having a feeling of, you know, there's a sluggish adoption of agreements that touch on, you know, environmental conservation? Is it an issue of funding or lack of goodwill, or it's just human nature? What could be the biggest problem? Because we are not achieving our target as fast as we would have hoped to as a globe.
That is true, and that will tell you, if you Conference of Parties 26, that tells you there have been 25 meetings since the inception of these processes. Okay, now the complex nature of climate change and what targets or what ambitions these nations needs to put in is what actually makes these countries, you know, drag their legs. Let's say, for example, to meet whatever agreement that they agree, because that means countries needs to cut on emissions. Countries, for example, would depend on fossil fuel for fueling the economic growth. These nations will be very reluctant to cut these emissions, okay? Because they depend on coal source of power to develop their nations. That is the reason why it has been taking very long time for this nation to come up with an agreement on this issue. That is exactly the reason why it is taking a longer period of time. And Glasgow, for example, is trying to push these states, the polluter states, the developed nations, to make more firm commitments in terms of cutting emissions, or depending, you know, weaning them off the coal, for example, or this dirty fuel, as we call it, that is causing emission of CO2 to the atmosphere.
All right. When you talk about these polluting countries, you remind me of there's what they call the Paris Agreement that, you know, these countries came up with. This was in 2015 that actually nullified the agreement that was there before, the Kyoto Protocol, which initially had actually banned 37 industrialized states from, like, obligated them to reduce their emissions. But the US and China were not part of the Kyoto protocol. It was after several meetings were held and until 2015 that during the COP21, the Paris Agreement was formulated, and US and China this particular time were on board. There seems to be a challenge when it comes to managing and controlling these developed countries. Yet at the same time, the impact on the climate, the impact on the environment that comes from these developed countries affect more the developing nations compared to them, because we are the ones who are relying on agriculture. We are the ones who need a clean environment. I mean, how do we go about this conversation so that at the end of the day, it's not about who has more power, who has more resources. It's all about what is good for us as an entire globe, what is good for our environment. It's not about who has what. How do we go about this conversation?
Like you correctly put it, and this is a report that has been in the assessment report of IPCC that puts Africa and other developing countries at the risk of catastrophe, climatic catastrophe.
They're affected more.
Now, Africa contributes less than 4% of these emissions. 80% emanate from these developed nations. And like you've said correctly, they are not willing. They are not willing as developed nations to cut their emissions. And I'm very happy today. We are making some, in Glasgow, we are making some inroads in terms of making sure that these countries commit to cutting their emissions. Today, for example, we've learned that they have committed to cut forest destruction in the next 10 years, in the next decade. Mostly Brazil, which is hosting the Amazon rainforest, the Congo, for example. So these are the kind of things that we want to see. But China, the president of China was not present in Glasgow. Likewise to President Putin, Russia, which is the main source of natural gas, one of the main contributors of CO2 in the atmosphere.
Is there a bigger message we should be reading from this absence?
You see, when you are being categorized as one of the major polluters, for example, and you fail to show up in such kind of a meeting, that tells you you are not committed. India, for example, which is the third largest emitters of CO2, has pushed the net zero carbon from 2050 that most of these countries have committed to 2070. China has remained at 2060. So if you don't have more a unified timeline, let's say, for example, because we don't have this time to face the challenges that the negative impacts of climate change. So time needs to be a very critical aspect. So if you see, it has to be accelerated.
Faster.
So if you see other countries, major polluters, saying we are not going to go by the 2050 that most of these developed countries have agreed. We are going to 2060, let's say, for China, 2070 for India. That tells you there's lack of, we have to come together. So we were expecting that all these countries, they agree by 2050 they should have met or agreed to have a net zero carbon. So that is where the problem is. So it's lack of commitment, number one. And like you've said, the African nations, the developing, especially Africa, let's talk about Africa. We are the people who are going to face very harsh climatic conditions because of this climate change issue. West Africa, for example, if you look at West Africa, 40% of the population live along the coastal line. We are going to see the rise of sea level. So where are these people going to go? So we are going to have displaced population in those kind of areas. Now, so there's a lot of issues that needs to be looked at as Africa. Push the developed nations for more commitment from them. And the issue, of course, of trying to get finance for mitigation and adaptation. developing countries. Okay, and the president of Malawi yesterday, when he was interviewed in Glasgow, he stated that, you know, it is not a climate aid. We are not requesting for aid. What we are saying, pay for polluting. Otherwise, we could have been okay as Africa if things were not the way they are in the atmosphere. If the amount of tons of, billions of tons of whatever of CO2 in the atmosphere was not as it is now, then Africa could have, the earth could have naturally cooled itself. So we are talking about so many other things.
All
and
right.
the climate issue.
As a lawyer, is there a legal approach to this? Because are we then saying that developing countries are helpless when it comes to sitting at the negotiating table and formulating agreements that will benefit, both sides of the divide? Are we helpless? Can't we do something to obligate the developed countries to actually agree to some of these treaties and actually implement them in their own countries?
We cannot say that we are helpless as such. I mean, there is a lot of things that we can do as a country because we have agreed to what we call the national determined obligations for countries. Let's say, for example, Kenya. Now, if because the initial reasons why these parties agreed to join by signing to this protocol, let's say, for example, or the Paris Agreement, or being in the UNFCCC framework for climate change convention, is that you want to be bound by it. It is a legally binding document, okay, by the developed nations. Now, if you say we are going to finance, for example, 100 billion US dollars annually to developed nations, then that ought to come from you, okay? That it is an obligation that you have to discharge, okay? There is no way the legal, as much as it is a legal binding commitment, there is no way of enforcing it, okay? So we'll just wait for them.
It's out of goodwill.
It's out of goodwill.
Yeah, and that's where the problem.
And you've seen, actually, the commitment, the pledge that was made in Copenhagen 12 years ago has not been fulfilled to date. Actually, it has been pushed to 2023. Now, that tells you, number one, lack of commitment. Number two is the developing countries also need to look for other options to mitigate and adapt to climate change, okay? And then you've seen as a country, as Kenya, for example, there's a lot of things that we've done as a country. Number one is to increase our forest cover, okay? Initially, we had gone to 2%. Right now, we are going to 7%, okay? Those are the immediate carbon sinks as a country.
All right.
Yes.
At this particular forum, countries will be expected to give what I would call a scorecard, because now we are rating ourselves against the Paris Agreement and how far we've gone, the progress we've made, among other issues, of course, that are going to be discussed at this forum. But one key issue is going to be looking at how far you've gone when it comes to, implementing the agreements that, the nations came up with in 2015. How do you think Kenya fared? How do you think our report is going to look like?
If you look at where we were and where we are heading. Remember, this is a country that is sitting at the heart of, the equator. Okay, this is where we receive the highest amount of solar energy. Okay, this is where we will feel the negative impacts of climate change the most. We saw it even in our neighboring country in Tanzania, where tropical cyclone Jobo was reaching the shores, and fortunately that it fizzled out along the way. Now, as Kenya, we can say we are trying our best. Okay. Because if you look at our forest cover, like I've stated, it has improved from 2% to nearly 7%. We are going.
You're targeting 10%.
Yes, constitutionally we have to hit the 10% cover. Okay, internationally we need to go to 12%. Okay, that is the UN recommended level. Now, then the issue of renewable source of energy. Okay, we have the hydro. Okay, Kenya is moving very fast on geothermal. Okay, so the president today, I think yesterday, he spoke and he said in the next by 2030 they should have reached what we call the carbon net zero carbon. Okay, you know, there's a lot of raft of issues that needs to be done. Okay, so in the energy sector, I think we are moving the right direction. We don't have coal power plants, for example, and that tells you that we are heading towards the right direction.
All right. If you look at our own, challenges that we struggle with as a country when it comes to addressing the issue of climate change, what are those challenges that Kenyans are relating to? What are the issues that we need to prioritize if we are to bring this agenda home? What are we dealing with as a country that is causing us an environmental crisis? Let me use that phrase.
There are quite a number of issues that relate to climate change in Kenya in particular, and one of them is lack of water. Okay, there is shortage of water if the drought is prolonged. Okay, and that, I mean, it immediately tells you something about sanitation. Okay, diseases will emerge resulting from the issue of unavailability of water. Then there is the food security. Okay, we are dependent on rain-fed agriculture. Without the rain, Kenyans will not survive. Okay, that's a fact. We need to say it as it is. So if the rain is not there, that means you and I cannot eat. The food prices will go up. Then you know what follows after that. There is the issue of human health. Now there is the intensity of diseases will surge. Okay, there's epidemics will come. Okay, because of this issue of climate change. So this is something that also needs, the human health is at a very critical stage. Then there is, of course, the extreme weather patterns. Okay, farmers will not be able to know what is going on. Tropical cyclone, like the one that we saw in Tanzania, for example, will set in. Mau, or the Mara River, where there is the seventh wonder of this world, will disappear because there's no
which is an unfortunate.
It is an unfortunate issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, like I've said, the sea level rise, which will negatively impact the mangrove forest. Coral reef plays a very critical role. It's an ecosystem that hosts quite a number of species in the coastal areas. Okay, so, and also there is that issue of biodiversity loss. Okay, if let's say flamingo in Lake Nakuru, okay, the level of that lake now is very high. Baringo, we saw schools being closed because
was submerged.
Yes, yes. That tells you the effects of climate change we are facing as Kenya. We are seeing, it's not about theories now. It is what we can see as a country.
It's already happening.
It is happening.
Yeah, in Elementaita, Lake Nakuru, Bogoria, and Logipi. I mean, have we hit Mother Nature and it's now hitting us back, or what is happening? Is it a natural phenomenon what you're witnessing, or it's as a result of human activity, or both? Where do you
now,
see this from?
Climate change has both dimensions. There's the one that is naturally occurring, then there's one that me and you, and these are the people, we are inducing. It's called anthropogenic source of climate change. Okay, pumping CO2 into the atmosphere, that is me and you causing. Okay, and mostly because the scientists have told us that the main reason why there's this change of erratic weather is because we induce as humans. We induce this climate change to come. Because if you compare the period of pre-industrial level, okay, the Earth was cooling itself naturally. But now, since we have introduced all these billions of CO2 into the atmosphere, the world is now changing. If you can, I mean, last week there was a report in major outlets. There's a town in Canada, okay, that hit 50 degrees, 49.6 degrees Celsius, a record that has never been seen before.
49 degrees, that's too high.
49.6.
Yeah, okay. 49.6.
49.6. Now, that tells you why. Okay, why now? Why is it happening now? If it was happening then we can say it was a natural phenomenon. But it is because, and scientists have put it in that manner, that it is as the human greed to development without taking into consideration the sustainable way of developing our nations. Okay, so we can say it is us who are inducing this thing.
Could we have prevented this industrialization, this new wave of moving towards this direction? Could we have stopped it? Did we have a choice? If you look at when it started and now we are experiencing its impact, did we have a choice, or could we have done it better? What do you think?
Now, I think it is not too late. Okay, and that is why these meetings are happening. It is not too late that there's nothing we can do. Okay, we had something to do then. Okay, but we failed to do. Maybe because we didn't have enough knowledge to understand what climate change really entails. Okay, maybe we didn't know if it was CO2, if it was methane, let's say, for example, hydrocarbons. Okay, so if we never had that knowledge, but now we have the opportunity to know because of the scientists who have informed us so, then we have an opportunity. Okay, and that is a message that is being sent in Glasgow, that it is not too late. This is a time of action. Okay, we need to act now. It will reach a time where maybe if we had the opportunity to sit with you, where we are saying, I wish we did. Okay, but now we still have an opportunity to change things.
You lose nothing by starting now.
That is true.
Depends on how you look at it.
That is true.
But now, how do we bring this information, this message, for example, the agreement that is going to culminate the Glasgow meeting? I believe the people who have the biggest responsibility of implementing and even bringing change to how we look at the environment are the local people,
yes.
Those who are in the villages, those who are in the communities, those who are in these industries. How do we bring that information from the boardroom to these people? Because it doesn't really help if these meetings are held in those boardrooms and agreements are signed, and there's a lack of information and a lack of knowledge and a lack of awareness about environmental conservation at the grassroots level.
That is true.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, because I did mention from the onset that one of the things that we fail, as countries, is disseminating that cascading those information from the office, the boardrooms,
yes,
all the way to the local level. Climate change is a phenomenon that most people do not understand. Okay, even if you do a statistics of the knowledge on climate change, it is actually appalling, to say the least. How we are going to educate people on climate change is what it is more of a government policy. Okay, for example, I think it is time that we include climate change on our curriculum. Okay, okay, we need to teach, especially the younger generation, why we need to protect the environment, why climate change is so serious that all of us needs to do something. Okay, we need to do awareness on why it is important for every person to plant a tree, why it is important, for example, to let's say paint our buildings white so that it can reflect rather than absorb.
These are the basic things.
Yes,
yeah.
Basic environmental conservation is basic. It is more of an individual. We can do it as an individual, and then we don't need to wait for the government actually to do it. Planting a tree, for example, you don't need the government to tell you to plant a tree. It doesn't need to be legislated for you to plant a tree. Something like painting all buildings white, for example, it is more of a government or a county policy. Putting using solar panels, okay, instead of roofs. I mean, our roof should be not mabati. It should be more of solar panels, so that it can either cool instead of using our energy from these other sources. Okay, so we have an opportunity as Kenya, Africa, because we have the enough sources of solar energy, so that we can move from the fossil fuel to more renewable energy. And this is something that the Kenyan government has to do a lot of work, giving incentives, let's say, for example, reviewing taxes on issues of other sources of let's say solar, for example. It is very expensive.
So having tax reliefs and tax breaks on projects and programs that are environmentally friendly. Because I was about to take you that the issue of funding has always been the excuse that we may not be able to do all that because we are crippled when it comes to funds. Countries would complain that, the budgetary allocation on environmental conservation programs is quite limited and nothing much can be achieved. So you're giving very useful insights on what can be explored in terms of just bringing this cost down and helping us meet what we want to meet in terms of target. Let's talk about the law, because this is where you thrive. What is the place of the law and how have we treated it when it comes to environmental conservation in this country? I was looking at a list of laws that touch on environmental issues, when I was preparing for this program, and I was actually saying, do you mean we have all these laws that touch on environmental issues, but how effective have they been to help us really meet this target?
It is true that we have quite a number of laws on touching on environment. Actually, we, according to a paper by Professor Mbote, there were 77 legislation touching on environment because it is sectoral. If you look at Water Act, for example, Environmental Management and Coordination Act, Kenya Forest Act, so there's quite a number of laws touching on environment, and some of us, me included, we've been trying to merge these laws. Now, remember, you're in court. Let's say you are the judge or the magistrate, for that matter, and you are handling issues of the emerging issues about, let's say, contamination of water. It is environmental if you look at it, but the kind of punishment that you give because of that particular statute is way too low or way too high than another legislation touching on the same thing. So you find yourself having duplicated. It is duplication. So and environment has no borders. It doesn't touch pollution of contamination of water in Kenya. Let's say where I come from, Cherangani Hills. If we contaminate water in Cherangani Hills, that water goes to Lake Victoria to Uganda, Uganda to all the way to Egypt. Now, some of us, we are advocating that we collapse all these laws. We have one law, one punishment for contamination of water across East Africa, and this is something that we can start from East Africa, for example. So if you pollute the atmosphere, the punishment is uniform in Uganda, in Kenya, in Rwanda, name them, all these other countries. Likewise to contamination of water, so that we know the punishment is, if you are going to serve 20 years for polluting the environment, it has to be the same across. Look at even how we ban this use of plastic bags. Uganda is still on. Rwanda, at least we followed. Rwanda is taking a very good step towards conservation and the protection of the environment. Kenya did follow Rwanda, but most of these plastic bags are brought from Uganda to Kenya.
So it is still a tricky balance, because the neighbor is still not moving in the same direction with us. But even as it took us quite a while to get to that point, it was actually really commendable that as a country we managed to ban plastic bags, a step in the right direction. Now I wish you could apply it in other areas as well. But do you think there is enough information and knowledge about these laws? Do people even know about their existence? Environment has not been given priority when it comes to legal issues.
That is true, and again boils down to the issue of legal awareness in terms of environmental issues or the general education. And when you're educating, let's say we are setting up that curriculum, for example, for environment for our children in school, then the issue of what does the law say will always be captured. If you are found littering, this is the punishment. And I normally have a very rough time when I'm using our Kenyan roads, because you follow someone, all of a sudden something lands on the road.
It's normal.
It's
normal. I mean,
it's something that needs to be condemned, actually, if, as a country, and that is why we are saying there's more need to do education awareness in terms of environmental conservation. That's what we are lacking. But at least we are making some positive steps towards environmental awareness. You can see Kenyans now more planting trees. For example, people personally, on their personal level, doing quite a number of things that are more eco-friendly than before. So there's a lot that needs to be done as a nation and as individuals as such. Yes.
How do we change the narrative from the punitive approach of taking action, legal action against somebody who has violated an environmental provision to a more self-generated goodwill to conserve the environment? How do we achieve that? Because the punitive doesn't really seem to be working, if you may ask me. We have like 70, laws that touch on environmental issues, but so far we still have a long way to go when it comes to environmental conservation. How do we change the narrative from punitive to something more self-inspired?
I think the punitive angle of it always serves, some purpose.
Yeah, okay? It helps.
It helps in some way. So we'll not say we are going to do away with the punitive aspect of it. Okay. Now, these other one will come. The self-driven, awareness in terms of conserving the environment is more of attributes of educating these people as to what is climate change, why is it important that we don't pollute our environment, why is it that we minimize the plastics. Let's say, for example, how long does it stay in our soil? Okay. Now, if these people get that knowledge, is when now someone will make individual decision to say, from today henceforth, I'm not going to litter. Okay. From today, I'm not going to ban this plastic waste that we normally do as a way of putting it away. Okay. So it is
to
more
us,
of like,
we are conserving the environment by banning it, not knowing that we're actually creating another.
You are now taking the knee up.
Yeah,
okay?
True.
Okay.
True.
So it's a way. It's an all-rounded thing that needs to do. We need to do a lot of awareness to our locals, and I'm very happy that the Kenyan Constitution, the current one now, initially, and this is Wangari Maathai actually suffered a lot when it comes to issues of protection of the environment, because the former constitution never recognized something called the right to clean and healthy environment. Okay, actually going to court. To like the one for this park, Uhuru, the one that she fought for, Karura and Karura Forest and the rest. Now, for her to go to court, someone had to, prove that there is a personal injury, okay, that you have incurred before you bring such a case to court. It is an environmental issue. It is not a personal issue, okay? But you are saying for the sake of a future generation,
there has to be
there must be some connection.
Yeah.
That was the sad part of the former law.
Yeah.
Now, the current constitution under Article 42 makes it very clear every single person has the right to clean and healthy environment, okay? And it goes further to say, under Article 69 and 70, that you need not to prove that you've suffered any harm for you to move to court for redress. Okay. So any other person can, if today you see someone who is want to contract something that is will harm the environment, you have that standing to go to court, okay, and say, hey, look, this particular project is harmful to the environment. It needs not to be, it has been the tradition that someone needs to prove that you have suffered harm, but the current constitution actually saves the environment in a very big way. And that gives environmentalists and lawyers like myself now the platform to protect our environment, to minimize climate change, on this mitigate, name them, all these other issues. So in the legal front, I think we have made big steps.
Yeah, so at least some progress there has been made in terms of making the law,
more green.
And more alive to the current circumstances that we are going through. Let me take you to something happening in Migori, maybe just your legal, opinion on this. The gold mines in that region, residents term them as death traps. Environmentalists have raised concern about the destruction on farms, residential areas, and even threats posed to livestock with regards to mining activities going on in that region. Leaders have come out to speak against this. Are they helpless? What can they do? Because it is not something that started yesterday. Many people have lost their lives, as a result of activities that are going on in these gold mines. Even in Kakamega the other day, there was a gold mine that caved in and claimed lives. In such circumstances, how are residents empowered to take action against, such an occurrence?
Yep, and that is true, and it's happening quite a number of areas, not even Migori and Kakamega alone. I think where the blame goes more is now the authorities that are responsible for issuing EIAs, for example, environmental impact assessment, leave alone what the locals can do, because like I've said, the constitution is very clear. If someone is doing something, even if the government is doing something that is going to likely cause harm to the environment, you can move to court. So the law is very clear. You have that standing to go to court. Now, my problem is the NEMA, for example, National Environment Management Authority, issuing an EIA license to a mining company mining gold in Migori, defacing these large holes that have become even more dangerous to life-threatening to the locals. Now, what responsibility? If you are going to issue, because you cannot just act in vacuum. The miner, let's say, someone who is mining that gold in Migori must have received the go-ahead from the Ministry
to do it.
Yes, to do it. There must be been a license from the Ministry of Mining. There must be an EIA license issued by NEMA. So even doing so, there must have been other measures that you, after digging up that mineral, you have to return the land as it were, to its state, because what I've seen is people digging up these minerals, then go to the next field, so leaving these people with these kind of life-threatening scenarios that you've just painted. People lose their lives, even their livestock. So it is an issue of the regulatory framework, the authorities, keeping a very close eye to these people who have the licenses, to make sure that whatever they do must include also, after they finish, return the area the way it was, the landscape. Yes, I like how that's more proactive, as opposed to being reactive. At least if they stop it at the point of starting this particular gold mining activities, then we can actually avert such threats. I want to take you back to Scotland. At the climax of this particular forum, as an environmentalist, as somebody who has a very strong passion in environmental conservation, what are the key issues that you hope that those who are attending this conference are going to agree on? If you look at our globe, and even if you like, you can bring it down to Kenya, what we are currently facing. What is it that you want to see as part of the agreement that is going to be formulated at the end of this forum? I think the most critical thing is the commitment to lower the emissions or the global temperature to 1.5 target. That is the most important thing. Number two is commitment by the large polluters, the developed world, to honor their pledges. Let's say the one for climate funding, the 100 billion annually. They should not be deferring every now and then to another 2 or 3 years. We are now going to 2023, and it was something that was promised in 2012. So you can imagine that time that it is taking, yet they are still polluting, Okay.
And the impact that
and
has,
the impact,
has been
actually the resources that finance that we are talking about would have assisted the developing countries to mitigate and adapt to climate change. So we are defining problems. Okay. So don't be surprised. Most of us are hopeful that Glasgow will break that circle of every now and then we'll have to go to another conference or party to discuss issues of 10, 15 years ago. Okay, so we are hoping that Glasgow will have a far-reaching commitments from these other countries, okay, so that we have a lasting solutions.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
At least let's talk about new problems, not the same old problems from COP1 to now COP26.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Kiprop Marimoy, an environmental lawyer, for shedding light on what is currently going on in the global efforts to mitigate the impact of climate change, and also talking to us about the significance of the COP26 international talks currently happening at Glasgow, Scotland, and the way forward, what he hopes as an environmentalist that global leaders are going to come up with as part of the agreements to chart forward the agenda for addressing the issue of climate change in the entire globe. Of course, that is all we had for you on News Check this particular morning, but we are paving way for the Swahili version of the program. We will be letting Ben Chumba take you through that. We're going to be having Kurunzi Mashinani and Tamrini in just a bit. My name is Serfine Achieng Oma, and our sign language interpreter has been Lensa Odingo. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your viewing.
To get Jeremiah 29:11 as your skiza tune, dial *811*397#.
Jeremiah 29 verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future.
To get Jeremiah 29:11 as your skiza tune, dial *811*397#. *811*397#.
Si mzungu binadamu kiumbe cha ajabu kuliko wa anyama.
Asante sana. Na wangu kutoka Islando anakuambia nini hapa?
Usaliti kwa ndoa, usaliti penzi wangu, usaliti.
Anipa michezo mitamu, chumbani ani shoti, kichwa tenge, mwili mazege, vichukoni kama joti, au sio? Ni Mr. Da, niko ndani ya Top Mashariki.
The only one for me.
The Amazons.
This document shows that your son Vicente owed money to Mr. Santos. And it states that if he didn't pay the debt, he would give up the ranch. I don't remember when Constanza was born. I don't remember her.
I need to know if she's Victoriana's first wife.
I'd prefer it if you find out and reach your own conclusions about that.
Diana.
Mom doesn't even know me. She doesn't even remember me.
We take it on at the right time.
Honorable Musalia Mudavadi.
The Honorable Mutahi Kagwe.
Chief Justice Martha Karambuko.
This is KBC, is the voice of Kenya.
Asking the right